If you ride time trials, whether you've got a dedicated time trial bike or a road bike, I'm going to go through a bunch of hacks and tips that I've learnt over the years that'll make you faster and help get the most out of your equipment. Plus, most of the information applies to bunch racing too. First thing to do is tidy up your bike as much as possible. Now this is a cutting edge time trial bike, the latest Gaia Adua. It really is a game of spot the cable at the front end. But I've not always had the benefit of riding bikes that are this slick and aerodynamic, and I've often tidied up the cables. A great thing to do is to use heat shrink on the cables. You can buy this from most hardware stores and then simply use a hairdryer to cause it to then shrink and tidy up the cables. We see pro mechanics doing this to pro bikes on a regular basis. If your bike does have external cables, make sure they're not excessively long too. That just presents extra obstacles to the wind. And black insulation tape is your friend. It can be used to cover a multitude of sins. Even on this bike in the cockpit here, I've used black insulation tape just to smooth out a few of the surfaces and just keep the little bit of cable there is hidden and nicely tucked away. Also, any exposed bolt holes or things like that, you should consider covering them up, such as where you'd put your water bottles if you're not using water bottles. And it's actually UCI legal now. It used to be illegal, but you can tape over them. So why not? While you're neatening up your bike, something else I'd suggest you look at is a light. If you're riding on open roads, then I think a rear light is an essential item. And in the UK, time trials actually say that it's mandatory. But a lot of lights aren't designed to be aero in any way or designed to fit onto the back of aerodynamic tube shapes such as this. However, there are designs out there that do, and one such example is this nice neat little one from Peak, which is ideal. Film yourself to get more aero. Set up your bike and yourself on your indoor trainer and either get someone to film you or film yourself. This is a really useful exercise because you can tell an awful amount about how aerodynamic you are just by looking at it. In my experience, you're probably not as low and as aero as you think you are, and a lot of people, without realising it, tend to have their head quite high. Now the best thing to do is an effort on your bike and film that, because it will show you what happens to your position as you get tired. Do you become less aerodynamic and start to let your shoulders roll out and lift your head up? And it'll also let you know how sustainable your aero position is, because that's key. You need to be able to get the power out in the position. If you do find yourself lifting your head up as you get tired or just moving it around a lot in general, then it's something to work on. And wind tunnels and aero testing are really useful tools. They can help you refine your position and make you faster, but they're expensive and not everyone has access to them. So, general things to aim for, things that tend to make most riders faster and more aerodynamic, are as follows. Head position is absolutely key. Try and hold your head as low as possible and ideally in line with the rest of your torso. Now, the integration of the helmet into the rest of your body is really important. Not all helmets suit all riders, but the kind of thing that you generally go for is a helmet that integrates nicely into the rest of your body without a gap where your neck is and your back. So something like this works pretty well for me. An example where the helmet body integration probably isn't optimal would be Primož Roglič in the 2020 Tour de France final time trial. You can see there's a significant gap between the back of his helmet and then where his back begins. Some riders can struggle getting their head low into that kind of like tortoise position, but something that can help with this is actually raising your extensions and your elbow pads. This is something we've seen a lot of pro riders do in recent years. If you look at the positions of, say, Alex Dowsett, Rowan Dennis or Stefan Kung, you'll see that relative to their saddle height, their elbow pads are actually pretty high. And this is because it allows you to kind of relax your shoulders and then let your head just drop in between them and get lower. It's worth filming yourself front on, and a mirror can be really useful for this too. What you want to try and be is as narrow as possible. Now, a way to achieve this is actually to roll your shoulders in. A lot of people just ride with their shoulders out, sticking out into the wind, relaxed, but pro riders will practice holding and rolling their shoulders in to get more narrow and be smaller. If you struggle to do that over long periods of time, then focus on doing it and trying to be as small as possible when you're traveling at the fastest speed, so with a tailwind or on a descent. And think about your hand position as well. You don't want to be, presenting jazz hands to the wind. Your hands are what punch through the air first, so try and make them as small and as neat as possible. This may sound a little bit ridiculous, but it is a really good technique, and even pros do this. In fact, our very own Daniel Lloyd was a pioneer of doing this kind of thing. Water bottles, take them off if your event is an hour or less. You can eat and drink before and after, and trying to do so during your race will slow you down and cost you a few seconds. And remember, every second counts. If you're doing a longer event where your body has time during that event to actually take on board nutrition, and you're going to need nutrition, then studies performed by Aero Coach have actually looked at the optimum places to put bottles, and they happen to be behind the saddle. You can get dedicated bottle mounts for there, and also in between your arms if you're using round bottles, or a dedicated hydration system. For example, they calculated that over an Ironman bike split at 180 kilometers, having a round bottle mounted on your saddle behind you versus having it on your down tube was worth around 1.5 minutes. A caveat though is if your bike is a relatively new one and has custom specially designed integrated aero bottles such as this one from our Orbea Ordu, then leave those on. Keep them on because they're often designed to make the bike more aerodynamic and are kind of like sneaky fairings. Having a bottle on the down tube though can often be a lot more practical. So if you are going to use a down tube bottle, then be aware that using an aerodynamic one such as this Elite one will save you around, again, 1.5 minutes over an Ironman bike split compared to a standard round bottle. Get yourself a disc wheel. I mean, they sound incredible, that sort of sound as they go past, and they look mint as well. They are considerably faster, but the downside is they can be quite expensive. But if you are on a budget, then why not make your own? It's something we've made a video on showing you how to do. I made this one. It's a lot easier than you might think, so check that out. Recent real-world aero testing has started to confirm a long-held theory that discs actually provide a sailing effect in certain wind scenarios, meaning that they literally act like a sail, catching the wind and helping push you along, making you even faster. Quick tip though, if you do get a disc wheel, also make sure you get a little pipe adapter like this. It's not a garden gnome's pipe, it's just an adapter so that you can fit your pump inside the slot in the bottom of the wheel so you can actually pump up your tyres. Otherwise you'll struggle. Practice pinning a number on so that you're not stressing about it come race day. Remember that a badly pinned parachute of a number can offset the aerodynamic or fitness gains that you've made elsewhere. Another option is if you get a fancy pants skin suit, such as this one from Castelli. A lot of them now have integrated number pockets in the back, which is actually really useful because it means that you're not constantly, turning your fancy skin suit into a pin cushion by sticking pins in it every week. But in my experience, I found that it is far, far easier to actually get your number inside the number pocket when you're not wearing it. But I have seen people at races, trying to contort themselves and trying to it's like trying to get out of a straitjacket, trying to stick your number in, and then you find you've put it in back to front or upside down, and it just defeats the object of having a number. Skateboard tape. Some riders like to stick this on their extensions and also on their base bar in place of regular bar tape. This is for a number of reasons. They like the grip it provides, but also it's a lot less bulky than standard bar tape, which helps reduce your frontal area and make your bike more aerodynamic, which is so important. It's also a little bit lighter in many cases too. Now, just be careful and don't get crazy with it. Probably wouldn't advise sticking it on your saddle, which is what Tony Marten did in the 2014 World Championships time trial, and well, he rubbed away his undercarriage quite severely. Long valve inner tubes. If you're running deep section wheels, which in a time trial you probably are, make sure the valves on your inner tube are long enough to poke out through the wheel rim. However, don't let them be too long, because ideally they should be long enough that you can pump them up, but no longer than that, because the inner tube valve actually creates drag inside the wheel and contributes to rotational drag. It can and has been measured. So the longer the excess valve you have, it's just slowing you down. I mean, it's only a very, very slight marginal gain, but everything adds up. This game is all about details. Plus, long valves can often annoyingly rattle against the hollow Aero deep section wheel. There's a number of ways to remedy this. Some people get that heat shrink wrap you can use on your cables and simply apply a layer, just put a layer over the top of the valve, heat it and shrink it on, and that dampens the valve. You can buy dedicated products that do it, but my favorite, most simple way, and something that I see pro mechanics doing a lot as well, is just to put some insulation tape and pierce it over the top of the valve and then tape it onto the rim to secure it. Speaking of which, and keeping that attention to detail, you should position your quick release levers or through axle levers so that they're horizontal and therefore presenting the smallest frontal area and a bit more aerodynamic. In practice, this is worth around half a watt. Yeah, not much, but you've come this far, so why not do it? And if you want to take it to the next level, you can. You can actually get leverless quick release levers. Just make sure you've got the requisite tools so that you can remove your wheel if you need to. I've actually seen these used on the bikes of FDJ and on Stefan Kung's TT bike. If you're using through axles, then it's actually quite common that they don't have a lever fitted on them and they simply use an Allen key fitment to tighten or loosen them. But either way, they're very aerodynamic, sort of automatically. And finally, you go to start your race, you're wearing your fancy pants new skin suit, and then you realise it's got no pockets. So where are you going to put your car keys? Well, you can trust a stranger and leave them with them, or you've got a couple of options. Sometimes I've found that you can just stuff your car keys up your inside cuff like that and then have them held in place there, and sort of you're holding the bars and it's not going to go anywhere, but it can be a little bit uncomfortable. And the best thing is if your skin suit has a fancy pants radio pocket. Now, I never ride with a radio in there, it's more for pro use, but the radio pockets double up as an excellent little key storage area. Boom. Well, I hope you found this video informative and useful. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and hopefully I'll see you at a time trial soon. I blooming love time trials. I love racing them. As many of you will probably be pointing out in the comments right now, yes, you can't get dropped in a time trial. No wonder Ollie loves time trials. Yes, you're right.